Amendments in the United States Constitution are weird. Some amendments house the most basic freedoms and ideas, like the 1st, 4th, 6th, and 14th. Some expand certain rights to more people, like the 13th, 15th, 19th, 23rd, and 26th. Finally, some amendments are minor changes to the Constitution, like the 20th and 27th Amendments. But one amendment does nothing, an amendment that is meant to be thrown out, but it's still in the Constitution. I am, of course, talking about the 18th Amendment, the amendment that tried to end the consumption of alcohol in the United States. This amendment would be ended by the 21st Amendment and would become, at the time of writing this video, the only amendment that has been repealed. But it's still there, being like a ghost. This video will discuss prohibition, the 18th Amendment, and why it's still in the Constitution when it does nothing. The 18th Amendment stems from what we call the temperance movement. Alcohol was extremely established in the United States, being the fifth largest industry, partly due to a huge amount of immigrants from countries like Ireland and especially Germany. But when people don't drink responsibly, alcohol can allow for many irresponsible decisions, like drunk driving, fights, abuse, crime, etc. Many began believing, especially coming out of the slavery abolition movements, that the last thing keeping America from becoming a true shining city on a hill was getting rid of alcohol. Many of these people were the wives of husbands who would often go to bars, which could cause the fathers to go to jail, abuse their families, or leave the family altogether. In 1874, the WCTU, or Woman Christian Temperance Movement, began heavily supporting the prohibition of alcohol. Slowly but surely, the WCTU and other groups like the Anti Saloon League began to grow, making the public believe that the many things would improve with prohibition. Lots of demographics universally supported the idea for many different reasons. And with many states already dry like Kansas, many would think prohibition was right around the corner. But there are two things in the way of prohibition. One was the fact that taxes from alcohol industry made up 70% of government's funds. So the government was not about to just drop its largest funder. The second problem was that many people were still employed in the alcohol industry and would have to get new jobs, leading to tons of unemployment if prohibition were to occur. Before we continue, if you could subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Even just liking the video or commenting would greatly help the channel and this video. Thank you for your support. Two things would happen that finally allowed the 18th Amendment to be introduced. First, the 16th Amendment was ratified on February 3rd, 1913. This amendment allowed the federal government to establish an income tax, which would become the government's main source of income. This would allow an amendment to be passed against alcohol without damaging the government. The second thing that happened was World War I, along with anti German sentiment. With the United States' introduction into the Great War, many Americans began despising German things, including the German breweries. This meant that Americans did not care if the industry was shut down. The 18th Amendment was proposed on December 18th, 1917, and ratified on January 16th, 1919. The amendment states that after 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territory subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. You'll notice that the amendment did not strictly prohibit the consumption of alcohol. This was primarily for religious and medical reasons. And on January 16th, 1920, the prohibition of alcohol took effect. The problems with prohibition began almost immediately. While the amount of people drinking alcohol decreased, the amendment was not very effective. During 1919, many people stockpiled alcohol, allowing them to continue to consume alcohol well into prohibition. Many people became bootleggers, producing or importing illegal alcohol. The government lacked funding to stop the industry, allowing bootleggers to expand, as well as corrupting local government and law enforcement. Alcohol related crimes skyrocketed as many mob bosses like Al Capone capitalized on the opportunity. Some Americans began producing their own illegal moonshine, which was incredibly dangerous and killed 1,000 people per year. Anti prohibition sentiment increased across the country as many wanted to see the end of prohibition caused violence. The final nail in the coffin was the Great Depression. The United States government needed an industry to create jobs that they could also tax. So many called for the repeal of the 18th Amendment. The Constitution never actually states how to remove an amendment, but any change to the Constitution has to come from an amendment. So the 21st Amendment was proposed on February 20th, 1933. The amendment was passed by special ratifying conventions instead of the regular state conventions because of pro-prohibition politicians. Eventually, on December 5th, the 21st Amendment was ratified and prohibition was over. The thing is that the 18th Amendment is still there. The reason why is for the historical record. We can't have a 17th and 19th Amendment without an 18th Amendment. So repealing the amendment keeps the 18th Amendment there without the effects of the amendment. So the 18th Amendment remains, like a ghost, still there but with no effect. Many people want other amendments removed, but only time will tell when a new ghost amendment will appear.